Today I'm going to show you how to replace a windshield wiper motor for a Daihatsu Hijet. So I'm no professional mechanic, but it's a pretty simple task as far as technicality. The only problem is you have to remove the entire dashboard to get to the windshield wiper motor. I've already taken the old one out and put the truck back together because I was using it while I was waiting to get a new one. The first thing you're going to want to do is remove the fuse for your horn, because you're going to be working behind the steering wheel and you're going to constantly be beeping your horn. You can also disconnect the negative side of your battery, but I'm just going to remove the horn fuse, which is down here underneath the dashboard. So I'm just going to remove that fuse first. So for this, you're just going to need a fuse puller, or if you don't have one of those, a pair of tweezers should work. And it's going to be the second one up on the right from the bottom. Just pull it out and your horn will not annoy your neighbors while you're reaching through it trying to work behind the dashboard. Alright, so like I said, you have to remove the dashboard to get to the windshield wiper motor. So that's what we're going to do first. We're going to pop these up, and underneath of them there are 10mm sockets, 10mm bolts that need to be taken out. So we'll start with that. So you just take a straight screwdriver, you can pop these up. Careful with your windshield. Like I said, I'm a professional mechanic. I'm just making this video because when I tried to find information on replacing the windshield wiper motor, I couldn't find it. So maybe you're out there and you're trying to figure out where your windshield wiper motor is on your Daihatsu Hijet, and you can't find any information. So as far as getting a new windshield wiper motor, I went to a few different parts vendors here on Okinawa, Japan, and they all quoted me around 21,000 yen, which comes out to about $200 for a windshield wiper motor, which is a little bit more than I was willing to pay, because this truck isn't like a project truck of mine or anything like that. I'm just using this truck as a possible side way to make money, because there's not a lot of Americans with trucks here in Okinawa. So I'm just going to be trying to use the truck to move furniture and different things to just make a little bit of extra money. But so I ended up going to a junkyard and getting a windshield wiper motor there. The one at the junkyard ended up actually being only 3,000 yen, so it's about $30. So because it's a little bit tight here, once you get it loose, you can just take off the ratchet and you can just turn the socket yourself to get that bolt that's holding the dashboard in out. In there. Oh, there goes the 10mm. So you get your 3 bolts out on the top, and then here on the driver's side there is another one. Oh, disregard that. On the it depends on what kind of vehicle you have. The one at the junkyard had a couple bolts here on the driver's side, but mine, apparently the previous owner took them out already because I don't have these bolts anymore, but there are 2 bolts here that need to come out to take the dashboard out. On the passenger side, there's a few bolts you have to remove the glove box to get to, and then there's some in the center console underneath the air conditioner and the radio. So to remove the glove box, you just kind of squeeze both sides, pull it down, and then you can also do the same thing with the bottom of the glove box. It just kind of pops in there. Oh. Alright, underneath the glove box, this bolt and just this bolt here. This was where the glove box was in. So these are all 10mm sockets. Sorry, these are all 10mm bolts. I don't know why I keep saying sockets. Once again, once you get them loose enough, you can just spin them out. Alright, I'm going to put all these in a plastic bag so that when I take the dashboard, when I move the dashboard, I'm not going to be taking the dashboard completely out. I'm just going to be moving it enough to get behind where I need to get. Alright, this is the center dashboard. Underneath the radio and stuff, there's a couple bolts in here that need to come out. Alright, another thing we're going to have to do is remove this dashboard cover. It just snaps in place. If you just pull on it all the way around, it should pop out. Be careful not to actually break the plastic snaps that are holding it in, but it does need to come out so that you can access behind it. There we go. If you look, there's a line here that controls the vent mode of the air conditioner, or the temperature. That controls the temperature control. So if you're trying to pull that out, you need to disconnect this wire here from the little pin it's on. All you have to do is pull that off, and then you can pull the wire out of this wire clip here. I don't know if you can see right in there, there's a clip that holds this wire in. You can just put the camera down for a second. Like I said, I'm no professional mechanic. I'm just making this video to maybe help somebody in the future that is trying to figure out how to change a windshield wiper motor. I hope you never have to, because it is a lot of work. And there's another wire on the driver's side that has the position of the vent, so whether it's going out the floor or the front. There's also a wire clip there. Just have to open that, pull the wire out. Maybe you can get that clip open enough to get the wire out. Alright. That's one little drawback of this truck, is it's so small. There's not a whole lot of room to work. Also not a whole lot of places to put things, so that's one of the reasons they put the windshield wiper motor behind the dashboard, because there's no hood. There's no hood to pop and work, because the engine is actually underneath the driver's seat there. It'd be really nice if this just popped open and the windshield wiper was right there. But the next thing we're going to remove are these 3 screws for the instrument cluster gauges, because when we pull the dashboard out, there's connections on the back of this that need to be pulled off to allow it to move. Mainly just the speedometer connector. That's a very rigid tubing, and yeah, she's got a few miles on her. That's why I didn't really want to spend $200 for a windshield wiper motor whenever I don't know what the next thing that's gonna go bad on this truck is gonna be, but hopefully she works for me. I'm just gonna be using it like on the weekends, moving refrigerators or mattresses or what have you. So I'm just gonna remove these 3 screws first. So when you're pulling the dashboard out, you may or may not have to remove your lid here. Remove this lid to try and get that up around it so you can pull out the dashboard. Obviously you want to be careful that nothing goes in there while you have the lid off, or else you'll have another problem on your hands. But just kind of pull that out away from it. Once again, on the back of that cluster you have this speedometer and then the different electronics going to the instrument gauge. So this is the one, the speedometer one is the one that is keeping it from pulling out very far, but I end up just pulling the entire gauge out. So you just have to maneuver in there. Not a whole lot of room, like I said, to work, but you just maneuver your hand in there any way you can and disconnect it. Once you disconnect the speedometer, you get a little bit more room to maneuver it, and you can just disconnect the other connectors as necessary. Alright, so I've got the cluster finally out. Disconnected the 2 connectors there, and the speedometer, odometer connector, and that gives us access to the behind the dashboard. You can't really tell, but this blank space right here is where the windshield wiper motor is going to go back in. So we'll start that here in a minute. So there's a couple differences between the motor I got from the junkyard and the motor that I originally pulled out. The main one being that this ground wire on the one that I pulled out has like an attachment here, but on this one either that attachment broke or it was never there in the first place. So I was doing some testing, and it turns out that if you ground it with this screw, it will run the motor. So that's what we're going to do when we install this. We're going to put this wire in here, and so that we can run the motor. So I got distracted putting my new motor in, but I'll show you how you take your old one out. So once you get your dashboard out, you can take your dashboard completely out. I have some stuff on the dashboard, plus I didn't remove this, so, and the radio would have to be disconnected. So I just kind of moved it enough to be able to kind of work around it and through it. And this is why you want to remove your horn fuse, because as you're reaching back here, you're just constantly bumping that. So right here's where your windshield wiper motor is. Whenever I removed my old one, I made the mistake of trying to disconnect this and disconnect these, but you actually just want to remove the entire assembly. So what you'll do is pull this and this bolt out, and then on the back there's a ball joint there, and so all you have to do is take a screwdriver and kind of pry that off of there so that it'll pop off, and then take those 2 bolts out, take these 2 bolts out and pull this entire frame up. It's kind of hard to see, but the bottom of this frame just slides on top of a bolt down there. It has two two notches to slide that on and take it off. So once you take these off and disconnect the ball joint, you just pull the whole thing out, slide it out through the steering wheel. So unfortunately, the reason that I decided to replace the windshield wiper motor when I bought this truck was I thought that the windshield wipers were too slow, and I thought that it was the motor going bad. But it turns out that that is not the case, because I have put the new windshield wiper motor in, and the windshield wipers are still pretty slow. Essentially the same speed. I'll give you an example. So for example, this is low, which isn't too bad, but this is high, which you would want in a kind of torrential downpour or something like that. This isn't going to keep up with a large rain, and that's the highest that it goes. It only has low and high. So replacing the motor didn't do what I thought it was going to do. It seems like there's a resistance somewhere, because if you manually come out and wipe it, it does go faster, but then when you stop, it adds that resistance back in. So unfortunately, replacing the windshield wiper motor didn't correct my issue, but hopefully when you replace your windshield wiper motor, you're sure that that's what it is. So now I'm just going to put everything back together. I don't know how much I'm going to record putting it back together, but basically you just slide the dashboard back in place, put the gauge cluster back in, connect it back up, and then reinsert all the bolts. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've got the cluster back in, and I'm mounting the dashboard back in. Whenever you're pushing this back in here, be careful not to get your finger stuck in there. The first time I took it out, I ended up smashing my finger between the dashboard and the door. Wasn't a fun experience. It's always good to have help whenever you're working on your vehicles. So I got my little helper out here. He's gonna help me put this back together, and should be good. I forgot that I had to reconnect the vent, which is this orange line right there that goes all the way back to that pole back there, that post. And doing that with the speedometer gauge and everything on was too difficult, so I had to pull that back out in order to put this on there.
Daddy.
One last thing I forgot is if you took out the fuse for the horn, don't forget to put that back in, or if you disconnected your battery on the negative terminal, make sure you put that back on, or else the truck's not gonna work, which is not good. Once you get your fuse back in, just give her a check your hazard lights, because that's the same fuse as the horn. Alright, so we got everything pretty much put back together. Got the glove box back in. That just gotta push this back in place. Give it a good test. Thanks for watching how to change your Daihatsu Hijet windshield wiper motor. Hopefully this helped you out. If it did, give the video a thumbs up, comment. See you next time. Huh?
James poo-poo.
Who poo-poo?
James.
Where?
There, the house.
Oh no, what should we do?
Come here, follow me.
Come here, follow me. Where are we going?
Come here, we go. James got one.
James.
Come here. Open up.
Alright, let's go see what you're talking about.